Welcome, Creek U Nation, to episode number 398 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ialon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our third book is called From Letters to Leaders, Leveraging Your Fraternity or Sorority Experience to Land Your Dream Job. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, sometimes we have so much fun with a particular guest on our show that we just have to bring this person back to tackle some other aspect of fraternity and sorority life. Our next guest was on the show a while back to talk about his research and his dissertation on hazing in college fraternities. But now we have a whole new topic to talk about, which is forming your own alumni association to continue to create the bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood well after college. Dr. Ryan McKee is the Assistant Professor of Instruction in the Department of Social and Behavioral Sciences at Temple University. In the past, he's also served as an adjunct instructor at William Patterson University of New Jersey, Widener University, Montclair State University, Kean University, and Fairleigh Dickinson University. He has his doctorate in human sexuality education from Widener University. Welcome again to the show, Dr. McKee.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Good to see you.
It's great seeing you again. It's always good catching up and seeing what's going on in your world. And I'm so happy that you landed at Temple University. They got some of the best students, a wonderful, vibrant fraternity and sorority system. Of course, our mutual friend Matt leads the charge there at Temple. Great guy. So I'm really happy that you landed at Temple. So congratulations on that position.
Thanks so much. It's been great so far. I'm really happy to be here.
That's great. That is awesome. So, as you know, I just came back from speaking at Radford University in Virginia, your alma mater, and I got to meet some of your fraternity brothers at Sigma Chi. And I'm wondering, did you know that they recently removed the deferred recruitment rule at Radford? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was a conversation that came up on our chapter Facebook group a while back. And, this is a really challenging question, I think, because there are two sides to it. The first of which is, if you're 18, you're in college, you can join the Army if you want to. You should be able to join a fraternity or a sorority if you want to do that. So, first semester moving in, that might actually help some folks make connections and might actually help with retention for some of those folks who may feel a bit lost at first. But we also know that with first semester pledging, some of the health outcomes and behavioral outcomes are not always the best, even though the data is a little bit mixed on this. And I think that's why some schools are reinstating this. But we do know that, the beginning of your college career, there are greater risks for things like sexual assaults. There are obvious risks for hazing, things like that. And GPAs have been shown well, they don't dip, but they just aren't that great at the first semester. So, there are some definite reasons to hold freshmen back until that second semester from pledging or joining. So I see both sides to this. Ultimately, I think it's up to the college to evaluate, obviously the legal issues about freedom of association, things like that, but balance that with the needs of their students. So, obviously, like I said, some students may find it beneficial to join. It's always so individualized when it comes to these kind of things. So, it's really a tough call. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I tell you what, my thoughts are that, listen, I'm strong, big believer in freedom of association, number one. So that's first and foremost in my mind. And I think students should have the choice on whether or not to join a fraternity or sorority in their first semester as a freshman. I'm certainly not going to say they mandate it by any stretch of the imagination. It's just give them the choice, because I think for some students, you understand Maslow's needs of hierarchy. You understand the fact that they need love and belonging in order to be successful. I mean, Maslow called it out. And so I think there are many students like me, okay, who need that love and belonging in
Mhm.
order to be successful. And I think that you and I both know that recruitment and retention right now for universities is paramount.
Yeah,
And I think if the universities really want to solve this recruitment and retention problem that they're having, I believe that fraternity and sorority is the way to do it. I think that once you're in, you're not leaving your brothers of Sigma Chi behind. You're just not going to do it. You're not leaving them behind. And I think it anchors you to the university. And when you look at all of the statistics, I don't see any reason why you'd want to delay that for the students that choose to affiliate. And when you look at engagement, just look at the Gallup polls when we talk about engagement. Right now, if you look at the US workforce, only 30% of the US workforce is engaged at work right now, according to Gallup. And when you look at fraternity and sorority alumni, that number climbs considerably. I think it's either
mhm,
43% or 47%. I was looking at it yesterday of fraternity and sorority alumni that are engaged at work, significantly higher than the general population. And when you're trying to increase, let's say earnings per share in your company, it is Gallup also shows that there's a huge increase in earnings per share for your company if you have engaged employees at
right.
your work. So therefore, I think it's in everybody's best interest. The general public, companies, the university, the alumni, the fraternity and sorority members. I think it's in everybody's best interest to grow it. And I believe that if we're talking about, let's say, sexual assaults, if we're talking about alcohol and drug abuse, if we're talking about hazing, all of these problems are happening all across college campuses, not just in fraternities and sororities. As a matter of fact, you and I have both seen it on athletic teams. So there's been a
Hmm.
big jump in hazing in athletic teams. So much so, we saw the head football coach at Northwestern get
Northwestern, right.
fired earlier this fall because of hazing that was going on. He got
Hmm.
fired. So I believe that fraternity and sorority is actually the solution to these problems. We just need to give the students the resources they need in
Right.
order to fix it. But I do believe that this is the solution to retention and recruitment issues that these universities are facing.
Yeah, it's a great argument. I totally get that.
Yeah. So, but I also see the other side of it. I'm not pretending. I'm not putting on blinders. Like I
Mm,
understand, like GPA and other things. We start to see some dips, certainly in the first semester.
right.
So, I get all of that, and I think that's a valid concern. I just think we can overcome that with
Yeah.
your fraternity or sorority big brother, big sister that's going to act as a mentor, and other members in the organization that are also your major that can help guide you through the classes and the curriculum and which professors to take
Right.
for the best outcomes. I think there's a way to balance a little bit of what you're talking about
Hmm.
with the mentorship that comes with fraternity and sorority. So that's the argument I'm making.
And more support from the university itself. So if we can increase that, especially in that key or early those key early periods, then that would be a big help too.
Yeah. Fascinating conversation. I love talking about this stuff with you. And, I know that as an alumnus, you're now looking to start a Sigma Chi Alumni Association in the city of Philadelphia. Brotherly love right here. So, how did this idea come about of starting an alumni association in Philadelphia? And talk to our audience on how the process is coming so far.
So this is an idea that I've been kicking around for a while. I know the last time I was on your podcast, we actually talked a little bit about it before we recorded, and you know, I I've been thinking about it for a while, and then the pandemic happened, and that kind of put the brakes on pretty much everything for most folks. But it still kind of rattled around my brain. And I actually read this book called "We Need to Hang Out" by a journalist named Billy Baker. And it's a memoir of him being a middle-aged guy who realized that he just wasn't um, in close proximity to his friends anymore, and he didn't have anybody to hang out with.
Mm,
And he goes through this list of health outcomes for guys who would be kind of classified as lonely. And I've got a family, two kids, so I would not consider myself lonely necessarily. But my good friends from high school and college that I've been friends with forever, they live in Atlanta and Boston and Richmond, Virginia, all across the country, Arkansas. And we talk all the time. through text, but I don't have that group of friends sort of locally that am used to having from when I was younger. Everybody gets families, everybody kind of does their own thing, and I kind of miss that. So I thought about, well, maybe I should join a group or join the Masons or something like that, and then I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm in Sigma Chi, so why not just reach out and see, number one, is there an alumni group in Philadelphia? And it wasn't, surprisingly. So I started to check around and met up with a few folks who were interested in starting. And again, this all goes back to this idea of just wanting some folks to hang out with. And I mentioned those stats for people who are guys in particular who feel kind of lonely. And it's not just a guy thing. This is a current health issue, public health issue that we're dealing with. Recent studies have shown that like 33% of folks over the age of 45 say that they feel lonely. And that loneliness leads to a decrease in our immune systems. And it can actually increase cancer risk by 10%. It's linked to a 30% increase in the risk of stroke and a 40% increased risk for dementia, and increases the risk of premature death by more than 50% for folks who consider themselves lonely. So I read about this in the book and started doing some research and thought, this is not just a social thing. This could be something that I need to do for my health. And if I'm feeling this way, then I'm sure there are other people out there who are feeling that way as well.
Yeah, you're making some really, really great points. And I've actually looked at this as well. And, when they ask, let's say, men or women, how many really close friends you have,
Mm-hmm.
that number has gone down over the last, a couple of decades
Mm-hmm.
considerably. And so I agree with you completely. I think college students, new alumni, whatever, everybody needs these people in their lives, and they have very few close friends. I mean, we all have acquaintances,
Mm-hmm.
people who we know, let's say on campus and things like that. But I'm talking about really close friends that you can have a really good conversation with about something that's personal
Mm-hmm.
to you. And I think, this is really contributing to some of the mental health issues that we're seeing on college campuses is no close friends. And
Mm-hmm.
so to me, it's another reason why it's important to have fraternities and sororities to create that environment where you have close friends that you can confide in, so that way we can alleviate some of the anxiety and stress that these college students are going through. I'll give you one more really, really good resource that you should check out that I think is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely phenomenal. It's called The Boys and Men. And it's why the modern male is struggling, why it matters, and what to do about it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
written by a guy by the name of Richard V. Reeves, Reeves. And it's just a fascinating look. And I think, especially for you and
Mm-hmm.
the work that you've done on your dissertation and everything else, I think this is a really phenomenal book to kind of talk about what's going on with men specifically. And I think it kind of points to what it is that you're talking about.
Right.
It's really a lack of really, really close friends.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like, okay, we acknowledge that that this loneliness thing is a real issue, both physically, mentally, all of these things and diseases you're talking
Yeah.
about, all of that stuff. So, what are we going to do about it?
Right. And loneliness is kind of a weird word. Like I said, I hesitate to call myself lonely,
Yeah.
but I've definitely felt lonely. And that's just sort of like it's almost like a stigmatizing word. And to get people to kind of admit that may be a challenge in itself. But to have the opportunity for groups or, in college fraternities or as an adult who's moved away from, your college, something like an alumni group is a great resource.
Yeah, 100%. And, we'll talk about it a little bit, but I saw the same need in New York City. I was contacted by a founding father of Sigma Pi from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. He got transferred for work to New York
Hmm.
City after graduation. Very common thing. You're going to move to
Right.
a big city where there are big jobs. And he didn't know anybody in New York City. And he calls me up because he knows I'm in the area. He says, Mike, where are all the Sigma Pi's at? And I said, well, I said, let me look in the database. And sure enough, there were 4,600
Right.
Sigma Pi alumni in the New York City area.
Uh,
And I'm like, all right. I'm like, why don't we just, send an email blast to all 4,600, alumni and have them meet us at a bar at a particular time and place, and let's see what happens.
right.
And sure enough, I got there. The place was jacked. I mean, there were fraternity brothers from every chapter in the nation,
Uh,
and it was phenomenal. And we started networking, and we started, meeting in New York City once a month at
mhm,
different locations, different events. Some were family friendly, some were more geared towards the younger demographics,
mhm,
and it was a tremendous success. And sure enough, soon enough, some of the undergraduates from chapters in the surrounding New York City area, such as St. John's, for example, in Queens, the undergraduates started coming to our alumni events,
right.
and the alumni started hiring the undergrads that were coming.
Yep.
So it was like this phenomenal thing. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, man, can we? I mean, we belong to the largest networking organizations on the planet. Can
Mhm.
we set up these alumni associations in all the major cities, in Philly, in Dallas, in San Francisco, whatever? And so it was a really big success. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I think that there's something to it, and we have to focus on it. And we just need people like you to help organize it, to be the nucleus of this alumni association and put it all together. What do you think the needs are for the alumni in Philadelphia? Have you done any surveys or any communication with the alumni locally?
Yeah. So, like you, the first thing I did was contact HQ headquarters and say, "Hey, is there any interest in this? Like, who are the people to talk to, basically?"
Right.
And the first thing they did was put me in touch with the chapter advisors from the local chapters in the area.
Mhm.
And then they also supplied an email list of folks in the database who live in the area. I think we narrowed it down to like 30 miles or 40 miles around the Philadelphia area.
Mhm.
And that encompasses a little bit of Delaware, a little bit of New Jersey, and a little bit, of the suburbs in Philly, around Philly. So we emailed the list with a link to a survey asking questions about what kind of things are important to them, what kinds of events and activities they would like to see. And we had a wide variety of responses, how often they would like to meet. Some people said every month, some people said every 6 months, and everything in between. And as far as the kinds of events that folks wanted to see, they would love to have sort of networking happy hours. They would love to have sporting event outings, things like that. Everybody gets together and goes to a Phillies game or something like that. There were some folks who mentioned wanting to do sober events or recovery based events for folks who are no longer drinking and that sort of stuff. And alcohol is an issue with undergraduates for sure, but it can also be an issue for us as we get older as well. And some of us just decide, to stop. And for some, it can be a problem to be in that environment. So I was really interested to see some folks, that wanted that kind of environment for some alumni events. So I'm happy to see it, and we'll be happy to, to encourage that for folks too moving forward.
Yeah, that's really good. I think, you just have to like kind of separate some of these alumni into the stages of life that they're in.
Yeah,
They're all
exactly.
looking for different things. So
Hmm.
your events that you're going to set up, they're going to attract different types of alumni depending on
Right.
the event that you have. So understand that, if you want to reach everybody, you're going to have multiple events
Yep.
targeted at different groups. So, type one is anybody who's an alumnus from 0 to 6 years from graduation.
Right.
Let's say they're 22 to 28 years old. They have time, but they don't have a lot of money.
Right.
So they're most likely going to respond to events that are at bars, that are at the chapter houses that you talked
Mhm.
about, sports and things like that. And for them, you got to figure out the communication mode, right? So
Mhm.
it's could be email communication, could be social media, right?
Yeah.
So those are kind of what you would focus on there. Type two, this is like really, I think, where you want to focus your efforts in terms of events. This is somebody 7 to 20 years from graduation. So this is an alumnus between 29 and 42
Mhm.
years old. They're usually stable in terms of their relationships, in terms of the business. They're most likely going to respond to family friendly events, something
Right.
that they can bring their spouse to, something that they can bring their kids to. They're hard to attract because they don't have a lot of time.
Exactly.
That's the big thing. But if you invite their families, I think that's a great way to get them. And for them, email communication is best.
Hmm.
Type three, anyone 21 to 45 years from graduation. So you're talking about an alumnus 43 to 67 years old. Very stable relationships, with their family life. Their children are starting to get older. They might not have a lot of time, but they do have larger disposable income. So this is really good for, getting donations and things like that. If you want to reach them, it's email, and then you got to start sending out physical mail, like
Yeah.
letters or postcards or things like that in the actual mail. And then you got your 46 and over years from graduation. So that's anybody who's 68 and older. They're retired at this point. They do have time to volunteer. So this is a great
Hmm.
group to attack for volunteers, other people to serve and help you build the Alumni Association because they have more time. They would most likely respond to events where maybe a peer is being recognized. So
Hmm.
think about the other Sigma Chi's in the area that have done really amazing things in their career, and then you have them as the focus for this event, and you're honoring this person for their lifetime commitment to Sigma Chi or their lifetime commitment in business or something like that. And for them, it's email, it's snail mail, and it's also going to be telephone calls. So you're
Yeah.
actually going to have to pick up the phone and call them. But the biggest advice that I can give you is find out who the connectors are in the
Hmm.
Philadelphia area. There are some Sigma Chi's that know everybody in
Right.
the area, in the Philadelphia area, and sometimes they know brothers that were like 4 years before them and 4 years after them. Find those connectors and announce that brother so and so, brother McKee, is going to be
Hmm.
there, and he's looking forward to seeing you. So before you're actually even publishing this event, you're actually already saying who's going to be there, and they can't wait to see you. And you want to
Right.
pick the connectors from all the chapters in the area that you're serving, and they want to see you. So if you announce that when the invitation goes out, that they're
Hmm.
already committed and they're coming, then you're going to see a much larger pool of people attending.
Yeah, we've speaking of communication styles, we've had a lot of luck with social media, and interestingly, that so there have been some attempts to start an alumni Sigma Chi group in Philadelphia in the past that just haven't really panned out. And part of the reason is that geographical um, area that I mentioned earlier. For whatever reason, the guys who live in southeastern New Jersey don't necessarily want to come across the bridge into Philly for events. The guys in Delaware don't want to go up to Philly. It's hard for guys in the suburbs who, again, often have the family commitments and things like that to get into the city. But now with social media, the reach is that much broader and it's easier to stay connected online. So we've had a lot of luck with the Facebook group. We've had a lot of luck with Instagram. Um, Not so much with any of the other social media outlets so far. I haven't dipped the toe into TikTok or anything like that, really. I don't necessarily know that I want to, but Instagram seems to capture the younger folks, and Facebook seems to capture the folks like me who have just had it forever and don't really want to give it up because of family and stuff like that. So we've got those two communities of people. We send out notifications, we talk, we organize, and we do still have that email list. And one of the things that we're going to do soon is start to think about the future of what the group is going to look like, because this is relatively new. We started this kind of this summer. Um, we're going to have like a planning meeting for guys who said that they would be interested in helping to organize and take on some kind of leadership in that survey. And what we're trying to do is avoid the same pitfalls that happen with that geographical distance between the different states all in the area.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that you're pulling from various chapters. I think
Hmm.
that's the way to get something that's sustainable because
Exactly.
just like in the chapters, you go through these peaks and valleys of leadership in your
Hmm.
chapter. Let's say at Radford, there's always peaks and valleys. You're going to have really
Right.
good leadership, and then like a terrible guy is going to come in as president, and then nothing happens. So, same thing is true for the Alumni Association. So, if you can pull from all these different chapters and you can kind of even out
Hmm.
that leadership and pull from the best from everybody who's there. So that's another really good tip. What types of events do you envision happening in this alumni association?
We have had a happy hour. We're about to have another happy hour coming up, and those are just the first kind of introductory get to know each other events, and those have been in Philly proper in the city. So moving forward, we want to spread that out. Hopefully, there will be some guys who are interested in taking on an organizing role who are in New Jersey, who are in Delaware, who are out in the suburbs, who can locate some spots or some activities or some volunteer opportunities that are in those areas so we can, maybe over the course of a year have an event in New Jersey, an event in Delaware, and then an event where everybody hopefully can come together in Philly, and then an event in the Philly suburbs, and then another event in New Jersey. And it sort of rotate through the geographic areas to keep everybody engaged, to keep everybody's travel and commute, because traffic here in the area is pretty brutal. So to make things a little closer to home for folks, but then have opportunities for everybody to come together in Philly for an event, even something like an initiation at a chapter, is something that a lot of guys have expressed interest in doing. So something like that we would love to do. Again, we definitely want to take on philanthropic opportunities and do some charity events. We want to do some fundraising events. We want to do social events, of course, and some of those, like I said, sporting event type of opportunities sound pretty fun as well. So we've got a lot of ideas, and our eyes are open to different opportunities at this point. So we're going to see what's successful, what's not as successful. We're kind of in the experimental phase right now for some of these events.
Yeah. Again, I think you can put it into like four buckets. I think you have ritual centered events. So
Mm-hmm.
there you're talking about initiation, which is fantastic. And Founders Day is another really big one. So you got to start
Mm-hmm.
thinking about Founders Day and what are we going to do for that? Because that's always a great way to bring out the Brothers of Sigma Chi. Then you've got, your, let's say, traditional events, things like homecoming and alumni
Right.
weekend. Those are great times that alumni are just kind of pre-programmed to come back to their
Mm-hmm.
institution, come back to the area. So start thinking about homecoming and alumni weekend and see if you can kind of piggyback on the events that the local universities are
Right.
already having. So that's bucket number two. Bucket number three, I would say, is networking opportunities for the students. So
Mm-hmm.
start thinking about career fairs, start thinking about mentoring for the students. That could be really, really engaging for those local chapters to get them engaged and bring the seniors out, because a lot of times we
Mm-hmm.
have seniors that ghost us, and that they're not going to make good
Right.
alumni if they're ghosting us senior year. So
Right.
that's a great way to engage the senior, and then as soon as they transfer to being an alumnus, then it's an easy into your alumni association, right? Because
Exactly.
you've developed a relationship with them and you've helped them get the job that they needed because of your entity, and now they become really, really involved right away. And then, of course, you have the alumni social events. So you're already kind of on your path there. I would say golf tournaments are another
Yeah,
really good, popular one. So start
that's
to think
another
about
thing.
that. Yeah,
A lot of folks mentioned golf outings and things like that. So I think we have a lot of folks who are interested in that in the area for sure.
100%, 100%. So that's really, really good. Do you have like a checklist for starting this alumni club? Are there certain sequences of events that you want to have in order to make this thing work? Maybe not the actual social events themselves, but like, what steps are you going to take in order to bring this to fruition?
Well, like I said, I've been working with the chapter advisors from Villanova, UPenn, Westchester University, University of Delaware.
Mhm.
They have all been super helpful in uh, trying to connect the undergraduate chapters to the alumni group and form that pipeline. A lot of folks who will graduate from those chapters may move out of the area, but some will stick around. And we also have alumni from other chapters, like you said, around the country who are going to be moving to Philly. At our first event, we had folks from colleges all across the country. It was really interesting and awesome to hear. California, Texas, everywhere. And folks just ended up in Philly for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So what we want to do, I think, first and foremost, is have that strong pipeline from the undergraduate chapters to the alumni group here in Philly. We want to reach out and make sure everybody's aware, that we exist, so that if somebody is moving into the area, that they know that they can reach out and find us. We want to cast that wide net. As far as a checklist, we're still kind of in the early stages of organizing what we want this group to look like moving forward. I would be kind of bummed if it was just a drinking group, right? I would really like and really feel that like an undergraduate fraternity, we can be so much more than that.
Oh, yeah.
We can contribute to the community. The various communities where we live. Like I said, we do have guys in Jersey and Delaware and Philly in the suburbs. So, we can be a force for good in all of those areas when we come together and put our hearts into it. So, pretty much anything's on the table at this point, and it's it's not up to me, it's up to the group. I have my ideas, but like I said, we're going to get together with those folks who are interested in organizing, leading, and go from there.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in a really good place. I would say to you at this point, start thinking about, even officer positions, right? Who's going
Mhm.
to lead this association? And it's not like you have to put your name in blood and, you're committing to like the next 10 years, but start thinking about who's going to lead this thing. You should have a general outline of here are the officers, right? At
Mhm.
least three, a president, a secretary, and a treasurer, right?
Right.
There's got to be some basic bones that you're going to start forming. Obviously, start forming relationships with all the undergraduate chapters.
Mhm.
They should all know that you're starting to form. I think is really important. Start thinking about the newsletter.
Yeah.
Start create that you're going to start creating that and start pushing that out on a regular basis. How often is the
Mhm.
newsletter going to go out to your email list? Eventually, so I'm talking about like 2 years from now, hopefully you'll have some functioning committees, right? So you'll have
Right.
like finance committee, an events committee, a bylaw committee. Hopefully you're starting to mentor the undergraduate students, so you're doing
Mhm.
an analysis of who you have in this alumni club and what their skill set is, and
Right.
so that way you can match them up with the undergraduates that match their needs, and you're setting up a mentoring relationship. And then start getting into service like you were talking about. How can we give back to the city of Philadelphia and
Mhm.
make it a better place, and start thinking about service and philanthropy and things like that. And then, years 4, and 5, now all of a sudden you're having multiple events. You have scholarships set up for the undergraduate chapter, maybe for those who can't afford to join Sigma Chi, but would
Mhm.
make great members. So setting up those kinds of scholarships would be fantastic. And now you're recruiting and recommending new alumni into the association back and
Right.
forth all the time. So, I think you're well on your way to where you want to go. So it sounds like you're in a really good place. So I like that a lot. All right, cool. So listen, I think it pretty much covers everything that you want to do in setting up this alumni club. I think this is going to be a really helpful episode for other fraternity alumni, sorority alumni to listen to, so that way they get some ideas on how to get started. So, are there any questions that you want to know? Anything that maybe you're curious about as you get started that we didn't talk about?
Um, one of the things I was thinking about was that you started your group in New York City,
Yeah,
and I'm helping to start the group in Philadelphia.
yeah,
And uh, I think this is something that is challenging to do, obviously, but you don't have to be in a big city to do
yeah,
this. There are smaller chapters for every fraternity across the country, and those folks don't necessarily move to big cities. And it doesn't take a ton of people to start group. All you need is a couple of people to get together with and try to do some volunteering or do
yeah,
some hanging out, whatever it is. So
yeah.
I would just say to anybody who's listening and interested, this is something that's worthwhile to do. I've in this short time gotten to know some really great brothers in the area and folks that even if this all falls apart and it doesn't get off the ground like other attempts at it in Philly have unfortunately happened, I'll still stay in contact with them and we'll get together. So it doesn't even have to be like an official thing. It can just be a group of folks that you get together with, and again, you can check in with your fraternity or sorority's headquarters and try to find connections to folks in your area. They would be more than willing to, I believe, share contact info, email addresses, things like that for people in your area, so you can get together and do this. And again, it's not just about drinking, or it's not just about socializing. It's really, good for your health, good for your mental health, like all those statistics say. And I would encourage anybody out there, fraternity member, sorority member, or independent, not affiliated, if you're feeling any of those feelings, just get active and involved in areas that you can. Volunteer, join a group of some sort in your area. Get active, take a class, do something to increase your opportunities for social engagement, because I think we're in a time now where we feel really connected to folks because of social media, but in many ways it's more and more isolating,
Yeah.
even connected. So I think that's what I would encourage folks to do. And I really appreciate you sharing your experience from the group that you helped to start. And I know I'll be coming back to you again and again with more questions. So thank you. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to share all of that. And, also I would say to you is, reach out to other headquarters of other major national fraternities and
Hmm.
sororities, because it is also possible that there are other alumni groups for other fraternities and sororities
Hmm.
in the city of Philadelphia. And if so, that becomes a really interesting dynamic to bring together, let's say, a sorority alumni association with you to do an event together. So
Yeah,
it's almost like a mixer in a sense, but it's really a
right.
networking opportunity
Exactly.
to meet other fraternity and sorority members. And, I'm living proof of that. I mean, like my whole life is, other fraternity and sorority members supporting my work. I mean, my
Hmm.
dissertation chair is a member of Delta Zeta. Okay.
Oh, very
Like,
cool.
so it's like, and, my master's degree, is because of the president of Cumberland University, who's a Sigma Chi. The vice president at Cumberland University is a Kappa Sigma, past national president of Kappa Sigma, and the chief fundraiser for Cumberland is a Phi Delta Theta. So understand that I'm being propped up by other fraternity and sorority members my whole life, my whole career. And so, I would also not only say to you that, a lasting alumni association is built on multiple chapters of Sigma Chi, but also start thinking about other fraternities and sororities and their alumni associations
Right.
in these cities, and see if there's an opportunity for you to work together to just celebrate fraternity and sorority life, meet new people, grow your network, and you just never know what kind of magic could happen. Who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe even somebody finds their spouse at this event. You just never
exactly.
know.
You just made me think of intramural, interfraternal basketball and sports
Yeah.
were a big thing in college. If we could link up with another group and have a tournament or something like that,
Yep.
that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, one of our most popular events was co-ed softball in New
Oh,
York
great.
City. Yeah, we did co-ed softball in New York City at where was it? It was at Central Park. You
Oh,
can
cool.
actually reserve fields for
Uh-huh.
free at Central Park. You have to give them some advance notice,
Right.
but you can do that. And so if we could have a co-ed softball game, like interfraternal, or even with a sorority or something like that, I'm telling you, it's so much fun. You have no idea. so so good luck to you, and obviously I'll just continue to be a resource for you, and just let me know how I can help.
Oh,
You
I
know how to get
appreciate
a
it.
hold of me, and we'll talk more as you grow it. Now I know you've been speaking recently about your research on hazing prevention and talking about sexuality and some of your background there. Where can the folks who are listening right now connect with you about future speaking opportunities?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with me is to go to ryanmckeephd.com, and there you can find a link to my email address and my social media, my LinkedIn, Instagram, things like that. So I would appreciate anybody who wants to reach out and learn more about my dissertation research, learn more about public health, learn more about hazing prevention. To just get in touch.
That's fantastic. So it's RyanMcKeePhD.com. It's spelled RyanMcKeePhD.com. Go and check it out. Learn more about all of his research and all of his work. And he would love to come and speak on your campus about hazing prevention and some of the other work that he's done. So, Dr. McKee, thank you so much for suggesting this. I certainly think it's going to be helpful for many alumni around the country.
I hope
So,
so.
so I think that that's a blessing, right? All we can do is just give back. That's all we can do.
Yeah, hopefully. And again, I really appreciate it.
You got it. All right. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. McKee, I want you to like it on social media. I want you to share it with other alumni within your fraternity or sorority. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.